Can the Mountaineers start a winning streak? We're going to talk about just that on this episode of Mountaineer Moment. This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to Mountaineer Moment episode number 72, where we're talking about 3 keys to victory for the Mountaineers when the Colorado Buffaloes come to Morgantown on Saturday at noon for kickoff on TNT. Deion Sanders and his team coming in at 3-6, 1-5 in conference play, just like the Mountaineers, but in a way, although they have identical records, 2 teams that are there's different vibe, different kind of feel as to where these 2 teams are at. Mountaineers obviously coming off of a win for the first time in 7 weeks, calendar-wise, 49 days, and they win that game. The week before, they showed some signs of life against TCU that we had not seen in Big 12 play to that point. And then there's a Colorado team who's given up 50 points in back-to-back weeks. They're coming off a 52-17 loss at home, 52-17 loss at home to Arizona, and the week before they lost 53-7. So Deion Sanders and company are going through it right now. Obviously don't have the Heisman Trophy winner on their team anymore, Travis Hunter, who led them to several wins. I think they won 9 games last season. Shedeur Sanders, obviously part of that team, not there anymore either, and it shows. They're struggling. And so as the Mountaineers get set to face them, coming off of a win, coming off of just a morale booster, and you get a ranked win on the road against a 7-1 team, that just feels really, really good. And whether or not you think Houston belonged in that conversation and amongst the top teams in the Big 12 or whatever, like their record indicated that they were good, and they are good. 7-1 now, 7-2 after the loss, and had done a lot to surprise teams in the country in the Big 12. Did Houston, and obviously they, Mountaineers were able to beat them, and so that's a big win. However you want to look at it, that mattered. That was big. For morale and just the fact that you beat a ranked team on the road. That's huge. And so now you look to build upon it. Now you look to continue down the right path in the right direction, and you get a team coming to Morgantown that is obviously beatable. You get a team that come into Morgantown and you're favored by 5.5, 6.5 points, nearly a touchdown against this struggling Colorado team who's had struggles on offense and on defense, some of which we're going to talk about in this episode, and some of which we've talked about already on Mountaineer Moment. So before we get into my 3 keys to victory in this episode, I do want to direct you back to, after this one, you can go watch the Over or Unders episode that we did in this game, just kind of a fun one that we do every week to highlight a few different numbers to be on the lookout for throughout the game. Obviously, we have the Behind Enemy Lines episode as well, just talking about, and those are both dropping the same day as this one did. So a lot of work put in today, and Behind Enemy Lines going a little deeper on this Colorado team, but this time, we're talking about keys to victory and what we can actually capitalize with what we know about the Mountaineers and about the Colorado team. So Mountaineer Moment episode number 72. If you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing that. The Mountaineer Moment movement is well underway at this point, and there's no sign of it stopping now. So join the movement, get on board, and I'd be super appreciative of that. Leave a like, leave a comment, drop a rating if you're on those audio platforms. That helps the algorithm and all that fun stuff too. So go ahead and do that for us on Mountaineer Moment. But we're going to get into it now. So 3 keys to victory, and we're going to start with that first one. Number 1 is we need to be able to run the ball. And it's not just because, that's an essential part of Rich Rod and his DNA and his offenses that we've come to know and love in the years past and what we've seen him do even at other stops. But you got to be able to run the ball against this Colorado team because they just flat out suck against the run. There's no other way to put it. And I'm going to give you some numbers to back that up, some of which, again, we've already discussed. But you got to be able to run the ball. They're giving up almost 216 yards per game on the ground is Colorado, and that's the worst in the Big 12 by a pretty significant margin. They're one of the worst in the country in defending the run. I think I said the other day they're third most yards given up per game in the running game, and that's not good. That's not good company you want to be in, ranking as one of the worst teams in the country and giving up yardage on the ground. I mean, you look at even just their numbers through Big 12 play, and I did this. So obviously they're 1-5 in conference, and in 5 out of 6 Big 12 games this season for Colorado, they have surrendered over 200 yards in those games. And the only time they didn't was in a loss on the road at TCU, 35-21, in a game where Josh Hoover had his way through the air. And so they weren't looking to run as much. Josh Hoover threw 4 touchdowns in that game, and kind of a fluke, kind of like the outlier, in this Big 12 schedule for them as far as, statistics in this running game, because TCU didn't even reach 100 yards. And meanwhile, the other 5 teams they played against got over 200 yards. The big one was in that 53-7 loss to Utah. Utah only had 11 pass completions. I mean, think about that. In the modern era of college football, a team to put up 53 points and only had 11 completions. I mean, I don't have the stats to back this up or anything. This is just me going out on a limb to say that 53 points might be the most points put up this season by a team that only had 11 completions. I don't know if that's true, but 53 is a lot of points. That's my point. They ran it 51 times for 422 yards and 4 touchdowns. They averaged over 8 yards per carry. Utah, obviously impressive against West Virginia too, had their way in that game as well, but that's an incredible mark to get to on the ground, 53 points and over 400 yards, 8 yards per carry. Insane. So the point, key to victory is, I mean, you gotta kick them while they're down. You gotta look to exploit that biggest issue that this, one of the bigger issues that this Colorado defense has, and that's defending against the run. And so my goal or my key would be to run the football early and often. Make them prove that they can stop it, because they just haven't this year. They just have not. And the Mountaineers happen to be coming off one of their best rushing performances in Big 12 play. They ran it 53 times for 246 yards and 4 touchdowns. Diore Hubbard had his best career game, 29 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown for him. And Houston's defense, we talked about that last week, they came into this game giving up only like 85 yards per game over the previous 3 games before the Mountaineers came to town and threw that stat and threw Houston's Big 12 title and CFP hopes out the window with it, right? Like, they ran the ball really, really effectively and efficiently against Houston. And so you got to look for that to continue. Colorado's defense is struggling mightily. Mentioned it already, giving up 50-plus points in consecutive games. And West Virginia needs to just say, you know what? If it's working for other teams, let's try it out too. And Rich Rodriguez already likes to, run the football. You have a freshman quarterback who, by the way, we're going to talk about him in a minute, isn't exactly playing like a true freshman because he's playing very, very well. But you got to look to run the football. And just how effective, how efficient, how well West Virginia does in the running game is going to be a strong indicator as to whether this one results in, again, a win or a loss. In West Virginia getting, again, on the right track and starting a little win streak here, or if they find themselves in the loss column again. Look for the running statistics at the end of the game to tell the story of that one. All right, that's key number 1. Run the ball early and often. Number 2 is this West Virginia defense needs to wreak havoc on the Colorado quarterback. So we've talked about it already, and there's actually been a little bit more of an update on Colorado's quarterback situation since then. Looks like freshman Julian Lewis, 5-star freshman, is going to get the start at quarterback. At least that's what a few reports are saying. He's obviously played a few different games, and Caden Salter, the Liberty transfer, has gotten the majority of the reps at quarterback. But obviously, this is a team that's struggling, looking for a spark, looking to figure things out. We know that story all too well with West Virginia's quarterback situation too. So Colorado's offensive line, and the reason I think a key to victory, again, this is just exploiting what Colorado's already bad at, where they already struggle. And so, a key is to get to the quarterback. Again, we mentioned consecutive losses. And again, that's not an outlier, but it's like you're giving up 50-plus points in consecutive games. That's significant and not necessarily a true indicator of like Colorado as a whole and where they've been this year. They won 3 games. They beat Iowa State, But anyway, against Utah and Arizona, Colorado give up 10 sacks. And I think they had 21 TFLs as well in those 2 games, if I remember correctly. So Zach Alley and his crew, look for them to dial it up defensively. We saw a pretty good defensive performance at times in that Houston game for West Virginia. I'm just going to pull up the numbers real quick. Again, 45-35 game. But West Virginia's defense, had 5 TFLs and 3 sacks. And, you saw guys like Jamoy Robinson finally showing himself and what he can do, what he can bring as far as getting to the quarterback. And so I think especially with Julian Lewis, freshman quarterback, on the road in Morgantown, all the way across the country to come to West Virginia to play a football game, you got to get to him. You got to wreak havoc. You got to make this thing hard for him. And the way that Zach Alley likes to dial up pressure and disguise looks and all of that plays into this point that you just got to get to the quarterback because they've had a difficult time keeping teams from getting to the quarterback. They've had a difficult time, even in run blocking too. Colorado has yet to have a rusher go for over 100 yards in a game. I don't know if there's any other teams in power conferences that have had that. I don't know. But I do know that they aren't very effective offensively as far as run blocking, opening up lanes for a running back or pass blocking, right? They just struggle. That's a struggle that we know all too well as West Virginia fans this year. But it might be something that we're figuring out. We sure hope so over these last 2 weeks. Some signs of life, and obviously a 45-point performance, 45-35 win last week helps that cause. And then, again, kind of a contrast of, although they have the same record, kind of 2 different teams trending different paths because of just where Colorado's coming off of 2 blowout losses and struggling to block, struggling to keep the quarterback safe and able to do what he wants to do in the pocket. So 10 sacks over the last 2 weeks. Again, I think 21 TFLs, which is it's nuts. And West Virginia's got to try and keep that trend rolling because that's going to help. That's a major key. If you get to the quarterback a bunch, force some hurried throws, get some picks, you could be looking at a victory again. So that's a key. And then the third one we're going to talk about here as a key to victory for the Mountaineers against Colorado coming up on Saturday has to deal with Scotty Fox. And I said at the beginning we're going to talk about him, and in this final kind of point we are. And the point here is just give Scotty Fox the keys. Give him the keys to this offense and let him keep improving. I've mentioned it a few times already as we've gone from TCU to Houston and then now on to Colorado. Box score-wise, right? Like Scotty Fox threw for 300 yards against TCU. He didn't do that against Houston. But you could tell there were elements of his game that were just looked better, that he looked more comfortable going through reads and progressions and, knowing when to keep it, knowing when to pass it, knowing when to throw it away. Like all of those things, he just looked more comfortable. He looked like a true freshman that is progressing as he's getting more game action, and that's what you want to see. And so had some beautiful passes against Houston, managed the game well and took his opportunities to run it, obviously. Had more rushes, a lot more than he did against TCU, where they weren't looking to use him on the ground. Against Houston, he had 10 carries for 65 yards. And he still, again, he didn't throw for 300 yards, but he completed 13 of 22 pass attempts for 157 and a touchdown on a beautiful ball to Cam Vaughn. He had another beautiful ball to Jeff Weimer for 50-plus yards, just right on the money. And I think a key is, again, this is foreign territory to us over the last couple of weeks, where it's like, all right, well, we know who our quarterback's going to be. We know what it's going to look like. We know a little bit about what he brings to the table, and there's a consistency because you're not looking for the next quarterback to come out on another drive. We're fully expecting Scotty Fox to be the quarterback, and that's a new concept for us over the last couple of weeks that we're learning. So I think you just got to continue to give him the keys, right? It seems like whether it's game by game with Scotty or, quarter by quarter or drive by drive, he just seems more comfortable, and you like that. And I think with comfort should come responsibility. With comfort should come an ability for him to get more plays, right? Not just run, the same 3 or 4 plays, but continue to build up the playbook for him and what you're comfortable, allowing him to do, whether, again, it's through the air or on the ground, because he is a, proven runner. He can run. The kid can run, and he's good. And so I just think a key, if we can sum it up, like Scotty Fox giving him the keys to the offense, it's a key to us winning this game, because you just got to let Scotty be Scotty. You got to let him continue to grow more comfortable, continue to, lengthen that leash that you're giving him and see what he does with it. Because when we talked about it, you can go watch that episode that I made, right after the Houston performance from Scotty. I said he's a gamer, right? He just is, and he's got a little bit of that it factor. You just love what he brings to this team. You love the fact that he's getting more comfortable and looking better and progressing nicely in a true freshman season. So super encouraged by that. But I think just letting him be the guy, letting him to continue to know that he is the guy, is a key for this team, because obviously the team is even playing better around him, right? I mean, whether it's just time and continuity and, just getting used to one another, whatever it is on that offensive line, they're playing better. And I don't know that any of us had expected that, and it's a small sample size. I get that, but you went into Houston and Scotty Fox didn't get sacked. You ran for well over 200 yards against a team that was pretty stout against the run coming in. So something's going right on that offensive line that we weren't used to seeing. And I mean, I don't know that it's a coincidence that Scotty Fox has been the quarterback. He seems to make everybody else around him better in a way. So just saying. But anyway, that's our 3 keys to victory. You got to be able to run the ball, because other teams have been able to run the ball against Colorado, and they've been able to win games against Colorado, point blank, period. Secondly, you got to wreak havoc on the quarterback. Again, another thing that we've seen other teams in the Big 12 do, 10 sacks over the last 2 weeks. You got to get to the quarterback, especially that freshman, make him want to leave Morgantown real quick. Thirdly, you got to let Scotty Fox be Scotty Fox. Give him the keys, let him go, and see what he can do and see how he can continue to drive this team in the right direction. So this is Mountaineer Moment, episode number 72. We will see you next time. Again, just a reminder, too, basketball season is upon us. Make sure to check out all the basketball content on this channel, and we'll see you next time on Mountaineer Moment.